here to welcome Bob Forbes, our new patron of our Pittwater Motor Enthusiasts Association. Bob's a long-term Pittwater motoring enthusiast, and you'd like to tell us about your early history in Mona Vale.
Yeah, sure, Kerry. Thanks for the invite to be the patron of Pittwater Motoring Enthusiasts Association. I'm very proud to take on the role. Yes, my history down this way has been quite long. I lived in Sea Beach Avenue when I was 4 years old for about 10 months. Then we moved south side over to Kingsford, and I went to school there and grew up in that area before moving back to Mona Vale, to Ellamata Road in fact, in the early 1960s when, as a result of Dad building a house there actually, and we moved into the house. Not long after we moved to Mona Vale, I ended up being, I shouldn't say ended up, I married my wife.
No, that was in the middle 60s, was it, I presume?
It was 66.
66.
Yeah, 1966, yeah. Yeah, we're still happily married.
And you had some sons, two sons?
Yeah, I had two sons, Rodney and John. And
John went on to follow some sailing lead in catamarans.
Yes, he did. Yes, we were building catamarans at very early on, but I did sail Hobie Cats, learned to sail on Pittwater, which was a lot of fun. And then it sort of all grew from there. John ended up sailing with me, and then I sailed with both the boys, in fact. But he went on, made a bit of a career out of.
So he sailed in became a world championship sailor.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And Rodney took on motor racing after you had retired?
Yes, yeah, he followed in my footsteps, so to speak, but a long while later. He didn't start till he was about 28.
Okay, back to the racing career now, mate. You've gone on for up to your 40 years old and began as a humble man seeking a racing car and had to take the wife's Cortina GT on the weekends, and she drove it to work during the week.
That's right, Kerry. Yes, I told her that she needed a Cortina GT. She was a school teacher, and I said, you need this car to be able to get to school and back, and I'll just look after it on the weekends for you by hill climbing it.
Very good of you, very good. And then between 67 and 69, you're involved in a number of hill climb activities around the country with a Monaro and a Mini Cooper S, a bit like some of our members who'd like to be doing that.
Yes, yeah, we had a good time doing that, travelling everywhere with the boys and in the back seat, so to speak. We had the Cortina GT. Then we got into Cooper S's. We had my own Cooper S, and a friend of mine lent me his Cooper S as well. So at times we ran two Cooper S's with different setups for the hill climbs. So yeah, we won the New South Wales Championship on a number of occasions, and the Australian Hill Climb Championship on 2 occasions.
Can't do better than that.
No.
And then that led on to 1969, where you had your first Bathurst drive, but not in a very fast car.
No, it was a very good car though, Kerry. It was a very good car. It was a Fiat 125, and given to us by a gentleman that lived in Bayview, in Mincara Road, Bayview actually, and he worked for the Fiat dealers in Sydney, and he gave us a Fiat 125, and the purpose was to go to Bathurst and do as well as we could do.
And that led on to a long Bathurst career of many successes and co-driving with many famous drivers. And we'll move on to 1973, where you competed in a Tirana XU1 with a famous co-driver.
Yes, he's been much more famous since. At the time he was basically undiscovered. And I'd raced against him in Queensland at Lakeside up there, and I eventually asked him would he like to co-drive with me at Bathurst in the Hardy Ferodo 500 as it was in those days, I think.
And you came fifth that year with Dick Johnson in 73.
That's right.
And in 74 you went on to even better things in another Tirana.
That's correct. Yes, we came second. Not Dick, he'd moved into his own car by then, but in 74 I drove with a guy called Wayne Negus, and was eventually beaten by Kevin Bartlett, and then
Was that
we were
tricky
second.
weather?
That
Tricky
was it.
weather that day? That was wet or
Yes,
raining?
it was. At the time, it was the longest race they'd ever had there because of the conditions. It was poured rain, and we were leading the race, but got caught out when the rain came. We'd already done our pit stops, and to get to the finish, we were fine to get to the finish. So we were leading by a fair margin, but unfortunately it started to rain, and the other car came in and got the tyres and the fuel at the same time, but we had to do two separate stops. So we lost the lead and came second, but we lived.
It's amazing how much racing depends on the tyres and the weather, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then from 1976 to 1981, you had a number of drives and associations with Kevin Bartlett.
Yes.
Before eventually retiring in 1981 from driving.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, Kevin and I drove Tirana A9Xs, and then he ended up with a deal with Channel 9, and we built a Camaro. First drove, I think, in 79 and 81. That's right, 3 times that I drove the Camaro. But we didn't ever go any good with that car, Kerry.
Wasn't it the brakes?
Yeah,
no disc brakes?
We had disc brakes on the front, but not on the back. It was a big, heavy car. It was a very fast car. Kevin put it on pole 2 years in a row,
Hey.
but we didn't ever win the race.
Well, that's a great racing career as a driver, and to finish in 1981 after starting in the Wasp Cortina in 1966, that's a pretty good effort.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, after your successful racing career, you became an administrator, having gained a lot of knowledge about circuit contracts and teams and so on, and you became a team owner yourself. You set up the Bob Forbes Racing team with a couple of Group A Commodores, I think.
Yes, that's right, Kerry, we did. Ran them at Bathurst, actually. General Motors started making the Walkinshaw Group A Commodore, and we had 2 guys that had essentially retired at that stage, which was Kevin Bartlett and John Harvey.
Yeah.
And they did a great job. We ran them in that year, and then the following year we ran Kevin and John again. We then put on 2 young guys, 2 young guns. They were only in their 20s, early 20s, and they did a really good job. Yeah.
Very good. And then you discovered the Nissan GTR. They were a bit of a hit
Yes.
at the time. Streets Ahead, won by 6 laps at Sandown, was it, or Bathurst?
Well, the Sandown 500, yes, the Sandown 500, we did win by 6 laps, which was an amazing result considering all the factory teams were there, except the other Nissan. There were 2 Nissans running at the time, but they let us go on our own, and but we had the unfair advantage, Kerry.
We heard you have driving.
Well, had driving. We had the 2 young guys we'd given a start at Bathurst, Rowan Onslow and Mark Gibbs.
Okay, and then you decided to sell up, and Wayne Gardner came along with a good offer.
Yes.
Or I don't know, was it a good offer or not?
Oh yeah, no, it was a good offer. He'd achieved or been able to get Coca-Cola sponsorship, and they wanted to have Wayne in a team of his own. So we were in a position where we'd like to sell up, so we did.
Yeah. So then you moved into some overall administration to regulate some of the discrepancies between the teams and the circuit owners and so on, and you formed TIGA.
Yes, yeah, we formed a group called Touring Car Entrance Group of Australia, which included every team, and the teams had to have TIGA approval to race. So we went with a package. We went to the circuit owners and operators and offered them a package, and they'd been charging us to compete and paid for entry to the circuit and all this sort of stuff, but we were putting on the show, and we sort of got that evened out.
I guess by then you had the knowledge as a driver, and you knew what was happening with the circuits and the money that was being paid. It seemed silly that drivers or team people, mechanics and so on, had to actually pay to go into the racetracks.
Yes, yeah, well that was like that, and we turned it around. Yeah.
And then in 2001 to 2002, you were instrumental in a major coup to get Craig Lowndes into your under your wings.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yes, he was making a move from General Motors product, being Holden obviously, and to Ford.
They lined up the green-eyed monster, which was fairly successful.
Yes, yeah, no, it was good. Yeah,
And
no, we've still got it.
and if the weather's fine, that car will be standing outside on the lawn on our lunch day.
Yes, yeah.
So then during this time from 2009 to 2013, Rodney was competing at Nürburgring and you were visiting while he was racing over there.
Yes, yeah, we had a good time there, Kerry. It is the best circuit in the world. It's over 20 kilometres in length, so you need to be able to learn the whole circuit. So what they have there, they have 4 4-hour races each year. They have 1 6-hour race and a 24-hour race.
It's one of the test places. I think cars use it for a comparison. They say how fast does a Porsche go around there, and
Yes,
then
yeah.
put a Subaru WRX around to see if they can match the times.
Now, it was interesting to go there because in that area, the car companies have set up their research centres and test centres, and they have cars there that they've got out on the circuit on a regular basis.
Yeah, so Bob's a relaxed pitwater man now, and enjoys life like the rest of us in the pitwater region.
Yes, yes, it do. It's a great place to live. We'll never leave here. We'll die here.
Yeah, it's certainly we all enjoy pitwater, and we're proud to be called the pitwater motor enthusiasts.
Yep,
so
that's right. Yeah.
motor enthusiast and club enthusiast as well.
And Kerry, I must say, it's been a great place during COVID too.
Oh
You know,
yes,
COVID hasn't been any fun, but living here has made it easier. Yeah.
yeah. So welcome aboard as our patron, and hope we have many years together, and all's looking good for the future. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Kerry. Thank
Do we have to do it again?
Excellent. Wow.
I don't know about excellent, but I thought,
But, hey, that
do you reckon it'll be okay?
of course.